You'll never earn more than you believe you deserve. If your mind is stuck at survival, your finances will obey. But when you train yourself to think like someone of value, life pays attention. And so does money. Wishing for more money doesn't create wealth. What builds wealth is clarity, consistency, and a simple plan executed with discipline. Hoping without planning is just spiritual procrastination. Rich minds have routines. Poor minds wait for rescue. Let me tell you something I learned early on. You don't build wealth with one big decision. You build it with hundreds of small ones. Daily acts, simple habits. I wasn't always good with money. In fact, in my early years, I let money slip through my fingers like sand. I was waiting for my break. But what changed everything wasn't a massive opportunity. It was when I started writing things down, tracking every expense, saving just a little every time I got paid, picking up books on finance instead of television remotes, and most importantly, doing it every day, not just when I felt like it. You don't have to be brilliant to win with money. You don't need a degree in economics. You just need to decide that today matters, that every dollar has a direction, that every small choice is a vote for the future you want. Wealthy people don't rely on chance. They rely on systems. Systems made of small, repeatable, often boring actions that compound into extraordinary results. If you save just $5 a day, that's over $1,800 a year. If you invest that wisely, year after year, that small act turns into freedom. If you read just 10 pages of a financial book each day, you'll read over a dozen books a year. That's enough to change the way you think, and once your thinking changes, your results follow. So don't wait for the lucky break. Build the breakthrough one small, consistent act at a time. I've always said it's one thing to have a goal, it's another thing entirely to make it a system. See, goals are important. They give you direction. They show you the horizon. But without a system, a goal is just a wish on paper. People tell me all the time, I want to save $10,000 this year. Great. That's a worthy goal. But I ask them, what's your system? And most of the time, I get silence. No breakdown, no plan, just hope. And hope, while it's a beautiful thing, is not a financial strategy. If you want to save $10,000 this year, you don't start with the full amount. You start with the first step. Break it down. $10,000 a year is about $833 a month. That's about $192 a week. And maybe, depending on how often you're paid, $96 per paycheck. Now that sounds doable. You take that amount and you automate it. Don't rely on willpower, because willpower fades. Structure is stronger than discipline when motivation runs dry. Set up an automatic transfer every payday. Move that $96 into a separate savings or investment account. Make it automatic so you don't have to think about it. Because thinking is where we lose most of our good intentions. I remember setting up my own system for saving and investing. It wasn't fancy. I had envelopes at first, later bank accounts. I made sure the moment I got paid, a piece of that money went where it needed to go before I ever saw it, before I had the chance to spend it. That habit turned into a system, and that system created freedom. The wealthy don't rely on feelings, they rely on frameworks. They don't just hope things will work out, they build a process to ensure it. Goals give you the vision, but systems create the outcome. One of the greatest mental shifts you'll ever make is this. Stop thinking about the next 30 days and start thinking about the next 30 years. The average person is focused on paying the bills, getting to the weekend, buying what feels good today. But if you really want to build wealth, real wealth, you have to lift your vision higher. You must shift from the lifestyle mindset to the legacy mindset. I've watched people spend their entire income month after month chasing comfort, a new car they can't afford, a vacation paid for with a credit card, a new gadget they didn't need. All because they were thinking in terms of the next moment, not the next decade. But the wealthy, they think differently. They ask, how will this choice affect my future self? My children? My grandchildren? You see, money isn't just about stuff. It's about security. It's about options. It's about freedom. And freedom doesn't come from what you spend, it comes from what you keep, what you grow, and what you pass on. I remember once being tempted to buy something I didn't need, something flashy, something that said success. But I paused. I asked myself, would I rather have this knower, the freedom to do anything I want later? That question changed my path. I chose investments over impulse. And that decision, repeated over years, changed my life. Let me tell you, wealth is not built by luck. It's built by patience, by thinking in decades, not days. Every dollar you save, invest, or allocate with purpose is a seed. And the thing about seeds, they take time. But once they grow, they bear fruit you can pass on. You don't just want to be rich for a moment. You want to be remembered for generations. That begins today, with every choice you make. One of the most dangerous things we do with money is let our emotions take the wheel. You see, emotions are unreliable. They'll trick you into thinking you deserve that splurge, or they'll make you fearful, causing you to hold on to your money and miss an opportunity. When you're emotional, your judgment is clouded. And when your judgment is clouded, your financial decisions tend to reflect that. And that, my friend, is how you end up broke. Now, let me tell you what the wealthy know: your money can't be left to chance. You can't rely on your mood to decide when you should invest, save, or spend. They don't operate on a whim. Instead, they operate on systems. Systems are their safeguard against emotional mistakes. When you automate your financial decisions, when you create a structure around how you manage money, you take the emotional aspect out of it. You'll never have to make that decision in the heat of the moment. You simply let the system run its course. When I was starting out, I was like everyone else. Some days I felt on top of the world and would spend too much. Other days I was tight-fisted and kept everything to myself. But then I realized this wasn't working. I needed consistency. So I built systems to save, systems to invest, and systems to track. I set up automatic transfers as soon as my paycheck came in. A percentage went into savings, another into investments, and the rest was left for living. I didn't have to think about it, didn't have to debate it. It was done. A system works when willpower fails. Imagine how much easier your financial life would be if your savings, your investments, your debt repayments all happened automatically, no matter what your mood was that day. You could be having a bad day, but your wealth continues to grow because the system is in place. The key is consistency, not emotion. The wealthy know this, and they understand that while emotions come and go, systems create long-term success. When most people get a raise, their first thought is, what can I upgrade? Maybe it's a bigger car, a better apartment, or the latest gadget. The lifestyle expands as the income expands, and suddenly, they're earning more but feeling just as stretched as before. It's the treadmill effect. More income, more spending, but no real progress. The wealthy play a different game. They understand that true financial freedom isn't about increasing lifestyle. It's about increasing assets. Here's the shift. When income goes up, don't automatically raise your lifestyle. Raise your investments. Build ownership. Put your dollars to work. Think of your income like raw material that can build either a fancier cage or a wide open road to freedom. Freedom comes when your assets start generating income, and that income begins to cover your life, not just your luxuries, but your necessities, your dreams, your time. I learned this the hard way in my early years. My first good year in business, I felt rich. I bought things I didn't need, trying to match my income with my image. It felt good for a little while. But the money disappeared as fast as it came. Then a mentor pulled me aside and said, every dollar you spend is a vote for either freedom or more work. That line changed me. From that day on, my rule was simple. I don't buy liabilities until I've bought assets first. So instead of upgrading the car, I bought shares in a company. Instead of moving to a bigger place, I moved a portion of every check into a fund. And slowly, something amazing happened. My money started coming back to me, multiplied, without me working for it. That's how freedom is built, not through income, but through discipline and direction. If you want to live free, don't just earn more, own more. Most people live with one financial lifeline, the paycheck. Every 2 weeks or once a month, They wait for that direct deposit to hit end. If for any reason it doesn't, the whole system collapses. That's not freedom. That's survival with a timer. And survival is a stressful place to live. The moment I understood this, I knew I had to break free from the paycheck trap. Not because the paycheck is bad, it's not. It's just incomplete. It's a single point of failure, and no strong structure is built on one fragile pillar. The path out of this trap starts with one key decision. Use your primary income to build secondary streams. Your job should be the seed capital for your freedom, not the finish line. Think of your paycheck as the fuel, not the destination. And that fuel should be directed into systems and structures that begin to generate their own energy. Income that doesn't depend on your time, your boss, or your physical location. In my early days, I worked for a steady income, just like everyone else. But I didn't want to be tied to it forever. So, I used evenings to read and weekends to plan. I wrote content, sold small products, and eventually began investing in businesses. The first side stream didn't make much, barely covered my coffee budget, but I kept at it. The second one replaced a bill. The third began to feel like a part-time job. And before I knew it, the streams combined to form a river. Suddenly, I wasn't worried about the paycheck anymore. That's what freedom feels like, not just the amount you make, but the number of places it comes from. So ask yourself, what skill can I offer? What problem can I solve? What knowledge do I already have that someone else might pay for? You don't need 10 streams overnight, just start one. Let your job feed your dream. Because when income is diversified, peace becomes predictable. Let me tell you something that changed the way I looked at money forever. Income is a reward for solving problems. That's it. Not for how hard you work, not for how many hours you log, not even for how long you've been at it, but for how well you solve problems that matter. The world doesn't pay you for effort. It pays you for impact. Now, most people are trained to be workers follow instructions, complete tasks, show up, go home. And while there's nothing wrong with being dependable, that path usually has a ceiling. But when you start thinking like a problem solver, that ceiling disappears. Because every business, every customer, every employer, every investor, what are they really looking for? Solutions. That's all. I remember when I first learned this lesson, I was doing the same thing every day, working hard, but not seeing much change in my bank account. And then it hit me, I'm not solving any new problems. I'm just completing a list. So, I started paying attention. What frustrates people? What takes up their time? What do they wish was easier, faster, or cheaper? I started asking those questions, not just of others, but of myself. And slowly I began to find ways to offer something useful. You don't have to invent the next smartphone to be valuable. Maybe someone struggles with organization. You can create a simple planning tool. Maybe small businesses need better photos. You learn basic photography. Maybe parents want affordable tutoring. You step in. The point is, money follows usefulness. The greater the value you deliver, the more people will invite money to flow your way. So stop thinking only in terms of job titles and start thinking in terms of problems. Problems are opportunities wearing work clothes. And if you can develop the habit of solving them consistently, creatively, and compassionately, you'll never worry about income again. I've always said, if you can't find a mentor in person, pick up a book, because books are the most affordable mentors on earth. Some people wait years for the right teacher to come along. But me, I found mentors in libraries, on dusty shelves, in secondhand bookstores. A book can deliver 20 years of someone else's experience in a few hours, and all it asks is your time and attention. I remember reading my first serious book on wealth that wasn't flashy or full of hype, but it cracked open my thinking. It introduced ideas I had never heard before. Compound interest, delayed gratification, asset building. These weren't theories. They were strategies used by real people who had built real fortunes. And suddenly I had access to their minds, all for the price of a sandwich. The problem is, many folks want change, but they don't want to study. They want money, but they won't read a book on how to manage it. They want success, but they won't invest 10 minutes a day learning how to think like the successful. That's a costly trade-off. Because ignorance, in the long run, is far more expensive than any book you'll ever buy. Some of the wealthiest people I've met had the same secret. They were readers first. They built their empires on lessons they didn't have to pay for with mistakes. They learned from the failures, the victories, the philosophies of others. And because they were humble enough to study, they became wise enough to win. So if you're serious about changing your financial future, start by changing your mental diet. Swap 30 minutes of scrolling for 30 minutes of reading. Choose wisdom over noise. There's a blueprint for wealth, and often it's hiding in plain sight bound in paper, waiting to be opened. One of the most powerful breakthroughs in my own financial journey didn't come from a new strategy or a book. It came from a moment of honesty. You see, most people are not held back by a lack of opportunity. They're held back by blind spots, habits, beliefs, or patterns they don't even realize they have. And when it comes to money, those blind spots are expensive. Sometimes painfully so. I remember once being asked by a mentor, "Do you know exactly where your money went last month?" I said something like, "More or less." And he said, "More or less means you're more in the dark and less in control." That hit me hard, because the truth was, I didn't know. I had habits I never questioned: quick stops for coffee, impulse buys, generous but thoughtless giving, procrastination when it came to reviewing statements. Small leaks, yes, but they were draining my bucket faster than I could fill it. So I sat down with a notebook. I tracked every penny for 30 days. No judgment, just observation. And what I saw changed everything. I found emotional spending trying to feel good after a hard day by buying something shiny. I found avoidance failing to check my balance out of fear. I found inconsistency. I'd save 1 month and splurge the next. These were my blind spots, and they were costing me peace, not just money. We all have them. That's not the issue. The problem is when we refuse to look. So I encourage you, don't just assume you're pretty good with money. Take inventory, track, reflect. And if you're really brave, ask someone you trust. What do you see in how I handle money? That question alone could be worth thousands. Because the next level of wealth is rarely about more hustle. It's usually behind a curtain you've been afraid to pull back. I learned early on that money has its own rhythm, and it doesn't dance to the beat of impatience. We live in a fast world: fast food, fast information, fast results. But wealth, real wealth, doesn't respond to speed. It responds to time, consistency, and the discipline to delay gratification. That's why I often say, impatience is expensive. Not because it feels bad, but because it causes people to quit too soon, sell too early, jump too fast, or spend too recklessly. I've met folks who started investing, and after 3 months of watching the market bounce up and down, they pulled their money out in a panic. It's not working, they'd say. But they weren't investing, they were gambling with emotion. The wealthy, on the other hand, understand that growth doesn't happen in days or weeks, it happens in seasons. Just like you can't plant a seed today and expect fruit tomorrow, you can't build a strong financial foundation by chasing quick wins. I remember putting money into a simple index fund. Nothing flashy, nothing thrilling, but I stuck with it. Every month, no matter what the news said, no matter what the market did, I added more. And years later, I looked back and saw that while others had danced in and out, buying high and selling low, I had done the simplest thing. I waited. That waiting turned into wealth. Patience is not passivity. It's not about doing nothing. It's about doing the right thing long enough for the results to arrive. And in a world that rewards urgency, choosing patience is a form of strength. It means you're not ruled by impulse. You're guided by principle. So if you've planted a financial seed, keep watering it. If you've started building a habit, keep showing up. The harvest comes not to those who rush, but to those who respect the process. I've always believed that knowledge alone doesn't change, lives applied knowledge does. The secret to multiplying not just your wealth, but your wisdom lies in 3 words: learn, apply, and teach. That's the cycle of true financial growth. See, too many people stop at the first step. They read a book, attend a seminar, maybe even take notes. But unless they take action on what they learn, all they've collected is trivia. And trivia doesn't pay the bills shape it's due. I remember early in my career when I was struggling financially, I picked up a book on money principles, and it sparked something in me. But more than the book itself, it was the decision to apply one simple rule: pay yourself first. I set up a small automatic savings transfer from every paycheck. At first, it was barely noticeable. But over the months, that little trick became a discipline. That discipline became confidence, and that confidence became capital. Then something remarkable happened. A friend of mine noticed I was calmer about money. He asked what I'd changed. I shared the concept, taught him how I'd set it up. He followed it. Then he shared it with someone else. And that's when it hit me: when you teach what you've applied, you don't just help others grow, you deepen your own understanding, your confidence increases. Your sense of ownership over your financial life becomes stronger. Wealthy people never stop learning, but they don't just hoard information. They act on it. They test it. They refine it. And then they pass it on. That's how legacies are built. Not just through money in a bank, but through wisdom passed hand to hand, conversation to conversation. So wherever you are, ask yourself, what's one financial principle I've learned recently? Did I apply it? Have I taught it to someone else? Because when you complete that cycle, learn, apply, teach, you don't just grow your money, you multiply it. So here we are at the end of a conversation, but hopefully the beginning of a transformation. You've heard the principles, you've felt the truth of them. But remember this: knowing isn't enough. Wealth doesn't respond to what you understand, it responds to what you do. One small decision acted on daily outweighs a mountain of unpracticed theory. If you want a better financial future, it won't arrive by accident. It's built in purpose, with intention, one consistent action at a time. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait for more money, more time, more confidence. Start with what you have, where you are. Open a notebook, write your first goal, set your first system, save your first dollar, read your first chapter. Teach someone else what you've learned. Start. Because when you move, life moves with you. And if this message struck a chord, share it. Leave a comment. Tell me what step you're taking this week. Because once you say it out loud, it becomes a commitment. And commitments shape destinies. You've got what it takes. Now it's time to act like it. Let today be the day you stop living by chance and start living by chance.